Hi, I'm Scott. Welcome back to Synth Stuff. Today we're going to recreate the sound of a Solina String Ensemble on the Montage. Now we could do this on a MODX. I'm going to use the ANX engine, the Montage M, but you can do the same thing if you just have an OG Montage or a MODX or a MODX Plus. Coming up. So I do apologize, I have not posted a video for a while. I was struck down by that awful walking pneumonia that just seems to be rampant everywhere. At least anywhere in the US that's having winter right now. My doctor says they've never seen so many cases of pneumonia. It took me out. I'm 6 weeks into it and I'm still not quite right yet. Hasn't made me want to sit down here and make videos for you. I'm getting better and getting there. So the Solina String was an instrument from the 1970s. I believe it came out first in 1974, sold through 1981, and I guarantee you've heard it before. If you've heard Pink Floyd or Styx or any of the late 70s, early 80s band, you heard Solina string sounds. Create the sounds of strings, stringed instruments, and it was created by an organ manufacturer, and as such it was designed to work like an organ at the time. Fully polyphonic. It has 49 keys like this one up here, and you could play all 49 notes at the same time. The reason for that is the way the circuitry was designed worked like an organ, like an electronic transistor organ back then. It has one oscillator. So all the keys are always in tune with each other because it only has one oscillator. Now that one oscillator might drift, and that means all the keys are going to drift as well. But as long as that one oscillator is in tune, the keys are all in tune with each other relative to one another. And the reason for that is because it used divide down circuitry. So it would have an oscillator running at a very, very high frequency in the kilohertz. And then it had a whole bunch of circuits that would take that frequency, divide it by 2. So every 2 pulses, it would turn it into 1. And then that one, it would take every 2 pulses from that and divide it down and get 1. For instance, if you had a 100 hertz oscillator, the next one down would be 50 hertz, the next one down would be 25 hertz, the next one down would be 12.5 hertz. And each of those oscillators can be used separately. So if we had an oscillator that was tuned to 440, which is C, and then we could have a divide down oscillator that took that down to 220 hertz, which is the C below. If we divide that down again, we get 110 hertz. So then you have to have a number that can be a multiple, that any of these keys can be a divisor of that master frequency. So that master oscillator is a frequency that can divide down and reach the frequency of any of these keys, and then it's just a matter of having all the different divide down circuits that give you all the different frequencies of each of the keys. And the reason I describe all that is because the way those are working are pulses. It is pulses. It's either on or off, and it's using that to flip all the different divide down circuits, and so it's using a pulse to generate the sound. Which, if you have heard a pulse sound, if I go into my init normal here and switch this to a square wave, then I can adjust the pulse width, and you can see we go from 0 to 99, and you hear the sound of it, and you can actually see on the little oscilloscope on the Montage, it's altering the pulse width. So we can change, if you've listened to the original Solina String, it has kind of a thin, reedy sound to it. So we're going to start this by, and I am going to do this on the ANX first, and after I've done that, then we'll go over and do it again using the FMX, or rather the AWM2 engine, which is in the original Montage and the MODX. So we're going to start with a kind of a thin, buzzy sound. Pulse width, that's all we need out of there. We will bring in, actually let's bring in some amplitude so we can give a softer sound. So we'll loosen or soften the attack and the release. A little too much. All right, so that's a very simple pulse width single oscillator, and we're using that to get that sound. The next thing that they did was they added what's called a triple chorus effect. We can't do that on the Montage. What a triple chorus effect is a chorus, but there's actually 3 of them, and originally they just had it mono with the 3 choruses happening, but the later ones had a stereo where 1 chorus was in the left channel, 1 was on the right, and 1 was in the center. What is a chorus? A chorus uses something called a bucket brigade device, which is a type of delay. But what it does is it is a very, very short delay in the order of milliseconds or even microseconds, so that you end up with a kind of a phasing. So it takes the original signal and then it delays that same signal and moves it just a little bit. And depending on the different frequencies, you can have a weird kind of swirly effect. And then what they did is they took an LFO and changed that chorus so that it altered the delay back and forth based on an LFO, which is adjustable. And so that it took that effect and brought it in and out and kind of give you the swirly effect that you expect to hear from a Solina. We do have 2 FX slots in here. So let's go into our inserts here. If we go to routing, you can see we've got 2 inserts. On the first one, I'm going to put a chorus, and let's put a symphonic chorus on there. And then we're going to do the same thing on the second one as well. So now we have 2 choruses. Right now it's feeding from A to B. Technically, it should be feeding into A and B and then summing the results, but the routing in here doesn't work that way. We could get around this by having a different parts, where we had part 1 had 1 chorus, part 2 had another chorus, part 3 had another chorus, and so we're actually duplicating the sound 3 times, but that's not going to be quite right because now we're going to have 3 separate oscillators, and so that we'll deal with this. So we have 2 separate choruses sequentially, one after the other. And if we go to the first one, we can see here our preset is basic. I'm going to change that to analog, and we'll do that the same for both. And our LFO speed is a little high. Let's bring that down. And dry and wet are equal, so let's make it a little more wet. Let's see how that sounds. And there you have the classic Solina string sound. I will say we probably should bring down some of the top end. And see the bottom end? There's not a whole lot of bottom end there to begin with. I think that's pretty accurate to it there. Unfortunately, we don't have a way with this of separating the channels and making it very wide stereo. What we could do is if we went into mixing and we adjusted the reverb send. So that does use the reverb to give it a little bit of a stereo effect there. I wanted to mention, I got flack for pronouncing reverb as reverb. So it's reverb, reverb. I've said it both ways. I grew up calling it reverb because I'm from Canada, and in England it's called reverb. And that's actually technically correct because reverb is short for reverberation, which is what you're hearing. It's a reverberation. So the short form of reverberation is reverb, but here in the US, everybody calls it reverb as if it's reverbing it. I don't know, but everybody here calls it reverb. And every time I say reverb, everybody's like, why are you calling it reverb? It's reverb. I know it's a stupid argument, but I just wanted to say, don't criticize people for calling it reverb because technically that is correct and it's only in the US, it's reverb. Anyway, so here we have the reverb. If we go in, we can edit the inserts. We can change the LFO speeds. So that's creating it with ANX. Now, what if you have a Montage or a MODX and you don't have ANX? Well, let's start over again, and we will do an init of AWM2. In fact, we could probably get away with, if we do a search, I bet there's one in here. If we do a search for Solina, I bet there's one in here. Yeah, there sure is. I don't think that really sounds like a Solina string. First off, it's really damped. We've got the chorus in there. It's mostly dry. It's too fast. Let's start with an analog. That's better. If we switch this one over to a chorus as well, I bet it would sound better. I suppose. What are we listening to as a basic sound? And it is, okay. It's FM. It's an FMX part. Okay, so let's scrap that. That was interesting, but I don't think it's great. So let's start over again, and we're gonna go with an init and AWM2. And what we are going to use for that, element 1, we are going to use synth lead analog. There we go. Pulse width. That's nice and fizzy. I think that'll work. So we have a pulse width sound there as our sample that we're playing. And if we go back into here and go to part 1, common, and our effects, we are going to put in a chorus there on symphonic. We'll start with the analog and bring up the wet, bring down the speed. Then we're going to do the same thing on the second chorus, symphonic, and we'll start with an analog preset, and then we're going to bring up the wet and slow down the LFO. Let's bring down the top end. Oh, and we do want to add some and then we'll go back to our master. Oops, let's go up here to our reverb send, and we'll bring that up a bit. It's good. It's not as good as I think with the ANX, but it's pretty close. So you can do that with your MODX or your original Montage and get yourself a Solina String-esque sound. I'm really surprised there isn't a decent Solina String preset in the Montage already. I don't know why. It's more than capable of doing it. And I bet that if I added a third chorus, maybe with a global effect, I could probably work on this and get it even closer. This is just quick and dirty showing you how it's done and how it works. But that I hope is of some help to you. If you like what you saw here, click like, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments, suggestions, corrections in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.